Our teenage years are usually accompanied by extremes of emotion as newly delivered hormones amplify feelings to hitherto unexperienced levels. That's why young love can feel so overpowering. But the other emotions are similarly affected, so breakups hit hard. I remember my first breakup, which led me listening to White Lion's Main Attraction constantly, and thinking the world would end and I would never ever get over it. So it can be a tricky time for young lovers to navigate. A breakup in a teenage world is often a sullen landscape where kids can transform from Tigger into Eeyore. But the last thing one would expect is a torrent of rage and violence. We're back in my stomping ground for this case, which takes place against the stunning landscape of South Wales, in a jarring counterpoint to the violence that occurred, seemingly catalysed by a stupid bet. This is the tragic and cruel murder of Rebecca Aylward, and this is Murder of Crows. As a parent to teenagers myself, I see the development of these junior humans and see them become young adults that are growing in independence and character. It's an incredible thing to witness, but a very confusing and oftentimes overwhelming thing to experience and to go through. It's from within this emotional wilderness that we set the scene of young love that turns sour and deadly. Aberkenfig is a small village near the large town of Bridgend and also the town of Maesteg. A former industrial town, it's more widely known in South Wales these days for the MacArthur Glen outlet village, which is a mecca for shoppers down my way. Yes, we're not exactly spoilt down this way, but yes, we have electricity. No, we don't use horses and carts, other than in the plethora of village fetes and gardening and farming shows that we have. But what we lack in commercial options, we more than make up for with natural beauty and unspoiled wilderness. So I'm not really complaining. It was against a backdrop of industrial tiredness and natural splendour that Sonia Oatley was raising her 3 children, Rebecca, Jessica and Jack. Rebecca Aylward was born on the 28th of February 1995, and by 2010 was a precocious teenager. She started a relationship with her boyfriend Joshua Davis the previous year when both were 14, and it was a good time for both of them, at first anyway. But Sonia did see some warning signs, though these could easily have been brushed off as showing off or teenage bravado, with her recalling, "I liked him before it happened. He was okay. He was always polite and nice, with no bad language. He seemed like a decent boy. We knew all his family. His younger brother was friends with my 2 younger ones." When I think back, if he would stay over, I would subconsciously tell Jack to tidy away his toy swords or dressing gown ties. I would take them all into my room, but I didn't really have a clue why. Once on TV, the Ku Klux Klan was on, and he said he would love to be one of them. He said he would love to be doing what they are doing. Becca just hit him in the ribs and said, "What are you saying?" But that set off alarm bells. She thought he was joking, but he was very racist. He used to walk around the streets at 3 in the morning. It was very odd behaviour. Trouble started to ferment when the 2 broke up in January of 2010. It was Davis that instigated the breakup, with him leaving Rebecca for another girl. Another warning sign came when she got another boyfriend, but Davis persuaded her to end her new relationship and meet up with him. Sonia Oatley says, with the benefit of hindsight, "Becca never told me that the relationship was abusive, but there must have been some controlling element as I look back now. When he left Becca for another girl, she was absolutely devastated, and I hated seeing her so hurt. But in time she started going out with another boy herself, only for Josh to convince her to end it and to meet up with him. And she did so almost instantly, thrilled at the thought of their reconciliation. But during the off times in what became an on-again, off-again relationship, the concerns were around how he would discuss matters with his friends. He would often joke about how he would kill his ex, Becca, in their chats, including poisoning her with deadly nightshade or pushing her into a quarry or a river. Of course, the friends thought it was all being said jokingly, but it would become obvious that there were sinister undertones to his words, and there was a rage growing inside the teenager. His texts to friends would be more revealing, but we'll return to this later in the video. It was on the day of yet another of their possible reconciliations that alarm bells started ringing for the friends and family of Rebecca Aylward. It was October the 23rd, 2010. And on that day, Rebecca was excited and looking forward to what she was calling a date with Davis. She left her home at 12:30 p.m. But when she hadn't returned by that evening, concerns grew, and they grew to the point that Sonia called the police and reported Becca missing. The next day, the police scoured the town of Maesteg and surrounding areas in the hopes of finding the beautiful young girl. They had no luck, and hope turned to tragedy when Becca's badly beaten body was found in woodland. Near her body they found a bloody rock, and later tests would confirm this rock to have been the weapon that was used to hit Becca repeatedly and ultimately cause her death. PC Gemma Tibbert described spotting Rebecca's body lying face down from a slightly raised embankment in the woods. She described the teenager as being an ashen colour and wearing her new jacket with the hood over her head. Sonia Oatley was herself out searching when the discovery was made, with her saying, "I wasn't there when the news came. It was the Sunday morning and the police came to my sister's house where the family were congregated. We were out in Aberkenvig searching for Becca, and my sister stayed back to look after Jack. She rang my brother to tell him to bring me back to the house." In doing victimology and looking at the life of Becca Aylward, it quickly became apparent that her life was entwined with that of Joshua Davis. And it was quickly theorized that Davis had some involvement in the vicious murder. But the extent of his involvement was not initially known. When mobile data put Becca and Davis in the same location before her death, he was arrested and charged. But much more work was needed to provide the weight of evidence needed to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. It was in returning to his phone and looking at his chat and message history that proved pivotal in leading to a confession of sorts. Investigators were able to piece together the following timeline. Joshua left the woods, drank some tea, and watched the movie No Country for Old Men. He then texted Rebecca to ask if she was okay because he'd heard that she was missing. This was obviously an attempt to cover his tracks. When police cranked up the pressure during interviews with the teenager, Davis's story began unravelling, and he blamed one of his friends for Rebecca's death. He claimed this friend accompanied them to the woods and got so upset with Rebecca that he killed her. Joshua said he was scared, and that's why he didn't intervene to save Rebecca. The police questioned all of Joshua's friends, and they found out that a previous wager may have egged Davis on to do the horrific thing he was being accused of. 2 days before the murder, while hanging out in a cafe, a friend offered to buy him breakfast if he got rid of her. The police found the following messages in Joshua's phone. And Joshua started this exchange by saying, "Don't say anything, but you might just owe me a breakfast." The friend idiotically replied, "Best text I've ever read, mate. Seriously, if it's true, I am happy to pay for your breakfast." And Joshua then replies, "I hope by then it will be done and dusted." When questioned about these text messages, Joshua claimed they were only joking, and it was something he and his friends did often. But based on these text messages, previous evidence, and the lack of any solid alibi, the police made the arrest and felt comfortable doing so. Now, as the weeks stretched into months after Rebecca's death, her mother Sonia was faced with the agony of waiting for Davis's trial to begin. She was due to be a witness at the trial, so police and prosecutors were unable to divulge more than basic facts to her, leaving Sonia's mind to fill in the blanks while preparing for the funeral, with Sonia saying, "Before the trial I knew nothing at all. They told me what had happened, but they couldn't go into any detail. It was just waiting. You were just left to it, to your own thoughts. There was no information. We had Becca's birthday in the February, and we had Christmas, which was a nightmare. I didn't want to decorate anything. Jack was 8 and Jessica was 13, but I couldn't face it. They decorated, I just helped them with it. I had to do it for them. I couldn't handle people talking to me. My family liaison officer was really down to the point, which suited me well." In June of 2011, 8 months after Rebecca's death, the trial opened at Swansea Crown Court. Davis, who had since turned 16, was accused of Rebecca's murder after bludgeoning her to death. As the case unfolded, the horrifying details of what happened that day began to emerge. During evidence, it was heard that Davis had told a friend he was going into the forest with Rebecca, and smiled as he said, "The time has come." When the same friend later phoned Joshua to ask if he was with Rebecca, the defendant replied with 2 words: "Define with." After summoning this friend, this fellow 16-year-old, into the forest, the murderer then told his friend that he had hit Rebecca from behind with a rock until she stopped screaming, before discarding the bloody weapon into the undergrowth. His demeanour was described simply as cool. Together the boys went home in full knowledge that Rebecca's body lay in the woods behind them. The court heard how, moments after her death, He had phoned his friend to meet him at a nearby gorge in the woods, and his friend told the court. He seemed relieved to see me and seemed to take a deep breath. I said, "What's going on? Where is Rebecca?" He said, "She's over there. There's no blood on me, luckily." I glimpsed Rebecca's dead body. She was lying face down. As soon as I saw her, I felt like I'd walked into a cold shower. My head was buzzing and I was shell-shocked. He said, "Pull up her hood and look at her face." I said, "I'm not pulling up her hood. I don't want to look at her face." At the end of a 4-week trial, an order banning the identification of Joshua Davis was lifted after he was convicted by a 10-2 majority verdict following the trial. Rebecca's family clapped and shouted yes as the verdict was delivered after 19 hours and 55 minutes of deliberation. Davis's mother was in tears, but he himself showed no emotion as the verdict was read out. The judge, Mr. Justice Lloyd Jones, said Davis would be in custody for a long time, and he would have to decide on the minimum period in detention before he could be considered for parole, with him adding, "This is a crime in a small and closely knit community, and it is right that the public should know there has been a conviction, and also a right to know who has been convicted. I expect that the weight given to the welfare of the boy changes now that he has been convicted of a very serious offence." Following the July verdict, Davis was sentenced in September of 2011, nearly a year after the horrific murder. Davis smirked as he was sentenced to a minimum of 14 years.
Justice system. It was her dream to become a barrister. This dream was cruelly erased by calculated killer Joshua Davis, a young man she trusted and loved. Rebecca was a beautiful, intelligent girl, a promising student, a loyal friend, but most importantly, a loving and much-loved daughter and sister. There is no doubt in my mind that Rebecca was destined for great things, but the evildoer Josh Davis robbed us of watching our precious and perfect little girl flourish into a successful and caring young woman. We will never forgive him for tearing our family apart so brutally, and would welcome the return of capital punishment for the likes of Joshua Davis, who forfeited his human rights when he chose to take my daughter's life. I would like to thank the public who offered their continued support throughout this unbearable time, and would also like to thank the prosecution team and South Wales Police for their meticulous hard work. Rebecca believed in the justice system, and today justice has been served. Thank you. It's undescribable. I hate him actually. He is the devil. As you heard the evidence, there is no mental problems, which makes it even worse. Just hate him for what he's done to our daughter, and mainly to these two. They're absolutely devastated by what he's done to our family. He was part of the family, lived with us a lot, didn't he? And he betrayed us all. Betrayed us. He was just a perfect gentleman, and he deceived us all. He lured Rebecca that day. Just didn't see it. I I wish I could help other parents in saying, well, he did this, he did that, but there was nothing to tell that he could possibly have ever done something like this.
The face of a teenage murderer. Joshua Davis killed his girlfriend Rebecca Aylward in a secluded wood, leaving her body face down in the dirt. A jury took nearly 20 hours to reach its verdict. Rebecca's family clapped and cheered from the public gallery when it was delivered.
The pain and horror of losing Rebecca in such horrendous circumstances cannot be put into words. Since that Saturday in October 2010, our lives have stopped. Rebecca was killed in a senseless and barbaric act. She died at the hands of someone she loved and trusted. We will never forget what he did to her or forgive him for destroying our family. We'd like to thank the prosecution team for their meticulous hard work.
Rebecca Aylward came here to meet her ex-boyfriend. The court heard she thought there was a possibility they'd be getting back together. She'd bought new clothes and was wearing them for the occasion. But his intentions were far more sinister. He'd lured her here to these woods in order to kill her. Her badly beaten body was found the following day, after her mother had reported her missing. A post-mortem examination found she died from head injuries. Her skull was broken in 4 places. During the trial, the court heard how Joshua Davis would regularly meet his friends at a local cafe, and that during these meetings, the subject of killing Rebecca came up. It was claimed one friend offered to buy him breakfast if he went through with it. 2 days before the murder, Joshua Davis sent a message to a friend saying, "Don't say anything, but you may just owe me a breakfast." The reply came, "Best text I ever read, mate. Seriously, if it's true, I'm happy to pay for breakfast." To which he replied, "I hope by then it will be done and dusted." Davis dismissed these texts, saying he and his friends were just messing about, but the jury disagreed, and a crime that's hung over a small community for nearly a year has finally been solved.
The ways in which her family, friends, fellow pupils, teachers, governors, school staff, and all who knew her have supported and cared for each other during these few months is a mark of our deep respect and love, both for Rebecca, her family, and for each other.
Rebecca Aylward was described by those who knew her as a bright and popular girl. She was due to sit her GCSEs this summer. Instead, her life was ended in a most brutal and senseless manner.
Another disturbing thing to note in the aftermath of the murder was that Sonia was forced to move home as the result of the actions of trolls online. One of the sick trolls told her she was such a bad mother that Rebecca was better off dead. Another troll, who was a school pal of Davis, wrote on Sonia's Facebook page, "You are a spiteful bitch who only wants attention. Becca is better off without a mother like you. Fuck you, you stupid. See you next Tuesday." Sonia said, "How could they say my beautiful girl is better off dead? I didn't think my heart could break again, but when I read those comments, it felt like it did." Sonia said that the trolls had warned her over a campaign to keep Davis in jail for his entire life, with her saying, "Some have sent threatening messages telling me to shut up or else." Disgusting and deplorable behaviour towards a woman who had already suffered so much. It was only in 2018, some 8 years after the murder, that Davis actually confessed to his actions, perhaps hoping to secure a shorter sentence. He woke up and asked to see someone, and just said, "I did it." Sonia, Rebecca's mother, said, "He told them before he told anyone else, even his own family. When she, referring to a probation officer who had called Sonia in for a meeting. When she told me, I expected her to say that he had put in an appeal, as we were reaching the halfway point of Davis' minimum sentence. When they told me about the confession, I don't think I said anything for a few minutes. I was trying to work out what she was saying. I couldn't believe it. I don't know how I felt initially. When he admitted it, I thought he must have a reason for doing so, as he denied it all the way through. I thought that he must have a hidden agenda. He's only doing it for his own benefit, not because he has any empathy for the family. It's cruel. My family felt the same. In a way, I would rather he didn't admit it, so he could stay in prison. But at the same time, I need answers about why he did it. I don't think I will ever know. If he is released, he will do something else. I honestly believe it. He is evil. I've spoken to police officers and criminologists, and they all say the same thing, that he's got the makings of a serial killer. In 2014, Sonia Oatley released a memoir entitled "Bye Mum, I Love You," telling her story of the cruel saga that forever changed her life. It is a compelling and heart-wrenching account of how murder affects a family and has more victims than the one that has been murdered. And there ends the case of young love that morphed into the worst kind of nightmare. A beautiful young girl was senselessly killed for no good reason. Joshua Davis needs to be carefully analysed before any consideration for release. I appreciate that his brain continued to develop after his vicious crime, but many early warning signs were seen in his behaviour. And while I do believe in second chances and in rehabilitation, I have serious concerns around this young man, and I hope any thoughts of releasing him are treated with caution and with priority for public safety. This video is, of course, dedicated to Rebecca Aylward, or Rebecca Oatley as she is sometimes known. A young girl whose life was ended so cruelly. She had so much potential, and she was bludgeoned to death by a fellow teenager who apparently cared for her. Two sets of parents lost a child, but it's Becca that's never coming back. And Sonia and her family's lives are forever changed as a result. A truly tragic case. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. I'm Steve. This is the Diva, also known as Samson, isn't it? Yes. And we will see you when we see you.
ready, but you won't like it, you say